What a headshot! What a head!
How's it, guys? This is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video, I'll be taking you through my top 5 tips for FPL. So we are narrowly approaching that Game Week 1 deadline. It's less than a week till the Game Week 1 deadline on Friday night. So make sure that you guys have that in your calendar or just have notifications on for my channel, as I will be doing a deadline stream 1 hour before the deadline. So that's probably the first tip, is not to miss the Game Week 1 deadline of any season. But I'll be going over my top 5 tips to hopefully get you a better rank this season. Now you guys might be asking the question, why should I listen to you? And that's 100% what I want from you guys. I think more people need to question who's giving advice in the FPL community, but no one can be 100% right all the time. So first of all, I'm no FPL expert, I don't think anyone is, but I've been playing FPL for a few seasons now. So you guys can see on the bottom of your screen, I've managed to get 4 top 6k finishes. I started this YouTube channel in the season that I finished 22nd in the world, and since then we've had some pretty good ranks. So I think at this stage I found out how kind of FPL works, things that work better than others, and just some general things that hopefully will get you a good FPL season. If you guys have been playing FPL for a while now, you'll know that there's no guarantee of a great season. FPL is a luck-based game at the end of the day, but these 5 tips will give you a good basis to kind of go on. So let's hope that I kind of follow my own tips, and this season we can get a 5th top 10k finish, as that's always the aim. So if you guys are interested to see what I have to say in terms of my tips for FPL, sit back, relax, and let's get straight into it. So if you guys are still here and haven't clicked off the video, I do thank you. Now getting on to the first tip, it's to just watch my channel throughout the season. I'm only joking there, obviously. I would obviously always appreciate the support, but you guys don't have to do that. I almost want my channel to be that you watch it, but once you get better than me, you can just click off. Now these are going to be my own 5 tips. You guys might have your own tips. Drop them in the comments down below if you have any kind of handy advice, as I know there's some new managers that have joined this season. Now the first real tip that I want to give you guys is probably more of a basic one, but I still believe it's very vital even amongst the expert managers. So the first tip is going to be all about commitment. So no, this isn't a video that your girlfriend has tricked you into watching. I'm not talking about commitment issues here, although some of you managers need to give some more attention to your FPL teams. So the 3 talking points that I want to go over is going to be deadlines, injuries, and decisions. And the scenario I'm going to give you is something that you probably already know. So all of us have that one friend or work colleague that starts off the season, then in about 5 game weeks time, they're not changing their team, not making transfers, and their rank just gets worse and worse. I think this is kind of a safety mechanism for some people. By game week 38, they have that excuse of, oh, I stopped playing in game week 5. But even amongst the better managers, this sometimes happens. Every season on my Discord server, some members always post a message in the chat, can't believe I missed the deadline, season over, and you guys would think that these would be more kind of expert managers. I think that's probably the reason why I do deadline streams, because it forces me to remember when the deadline happens. So hopefully that helps you guys out a bit as well. So I just believe if you guys stay kind of proactive on your squad, whether it be 10 minutes before the deadline, catching up on injury news, looking at the best fixtures, that sort of thing, it will improve your rank quite a bit, as missing a deadline can be absolutely disastrous. So what I would recommend doing is setting a bust team. What this is after the previous deadline has happened, just rearrange your squad, bench some options, captain a different player if you want to, in preparation for that future upcoming week. That way, at least if you guys do miss the deadline, you'll still have a team based on the next game week's decisions. So that'll be a worst case scenario. But as mentioned, just kind of spending a bit of time before the deadline, even if it is the day before, this could come in clutch quite a bit. So one thing that's kind of popped up more regularly throughout the previous seasons is the fact that we get a ton of information before the game week deadline. Whether this be kind of early team leaks or just general injury news, this has changed the landscape of how late to do your transfers. You guys will know in my deadline streams I absolutely love to do live transfers, but it has been because of the regular kind of team leaks that we have been getting. So generally the commitment tip, if you guys are kind of new managers, just stay committed to your team every deadline. But for more expert managers, stay focused on that news around deadline, because that may change your decision. Now the second tip is going to be all about patience. Now we can kind of link this into a previous talking point that I went over, and that's the fact that you guys should wait as long as possible to make your transfers, and that's something that I've learned to do over the previous seasons. There's just so much midweek football and kind of training sessions that happen throughout the week that anything can happen and potential injuries can pop up. So going back to those deadline streams, I always make my transfers usually in those deadline streams, just to give myself the most information as possible. So please don't kind of react emotionally if your player blanks on the weekend. Don't take them out on Sunday evening. Rather wait till the next weekend, because another player might have got injured in the midweek fixture. So that's the first element of patience, but this can kind of be more linked to waiting as long as possible to make your transfers. Added bonus has been those team leaks that we have been getting before the deadline. Now the second part is going to be about the players. So in the FPL community, there's a common theme about when you take a player out, they're probably going to score. And that's not because you cursed or something like that, it's because the outcome actually was correct, you just didn't give it enough time. So there might be a few times throughout the season where you bring a player in, they don't hit the ground running straight away, you then take them out and then they get into some good form, and obviously you'll regret doing that. Now this patience with players has to be used in context. No, I don't mean that you should just keep hold of a player that's blanked for 10 weeks in a row, has bad fixtures coming up. That doesn't make sense. But if a player's had some tougher fixtures, hasn't scored, but has some great fixtures, they could potentially repay you back for that patience. It just goes back to that common theme as mentioned. When you take a player out, they always seem like they end up scoring, and that's just because you didn't give it enough time. So when I think about this patience with players, it's almost kind of a logical approach. If a player has good kind of backing stats and they've blanked for the few fixtures that you guys have owned them, giving them more time will get them back to that average, and therefore they should start returning. So just something to think about. I've seen this throughout the previous seasons. I think it comes with kind of experience. You just get more composed as the game weeks go by, and you don't react emotionally to bad outcomes. So I think in everything in life, it's always good to exercise a bit more patience, and I would recommend doing so in the world of FPL. Now the third tip that I have is all to do with planning. Now the first tip I'm going to give you is please don't plan too long term. This has happened to me before. I've planned for kind of future, even more medium term transfers, and by the time I get there, I'm 0.1 million off. So injuries can happen, price increases can happen, and that's why I would take more of a medium term approach. Now when I do the planning of my own team, I always look at the fixtures, not the form. And you guys will know this if you've watched my channel for quite a long time, I'm more of a fixtures type of guy. I just believe fixtures do create form. If a player is playing against an easier opposition, they're probably going to do better, and therefore turn in form. So this is why it's vital to have a fixture ticker. You guys can do your own one like we did in the fixture analysis video that I did a few weeks ago. Otherwise, a few websites do have them. Now worst case, you guys can use the FPL actual fixture ticker. I don't think it has the best ratings, but as you guys get experience, you'll kind of analyze it and make your own ratings. But please, when you are looking to bring in players and take out players, look at the fixtures. Now, if we do take planning from a kind of general aspect in terms of double game weeks, blank game weeks, even just fixtures, there's two accounts that I would recommend following. The first one is going to be Ben Crellin. I'm an absolute Ben Crellin stan. I think he was one of the first accounts that I followed over on Twitter. But he's the absolute guru in terms of Gameweek scheduling. I think the Premier League should probably offer him a job in the scheduling department because his predictions are always kind of bang on. So what Ben does throughout the season is he gives you predictions of how the double game weeks, blank game weeks are going to fall, and then you guys can use this for more long-term planning like your chip strategy. Another account on screen is going to be Mikkel Tokvam. He takes Ben Krillin's information and he presents it in a kind of more easy to use way, and I'll showcase that shortly. But these two accounts, in terms of kind of more long-term planning, even short-term planning, super useful to give you the game week schedules. So for example, I'm going to bring up a graphic from Ben Crellin last year. You guys can just see that he does these predictions throughout the season, and when they are locked in, gives you a very nice kind of graphic. These are the doubles that happen in 34, 35, and 37. What you guys can then do is plan your transfers and your chips around these doubles, just lays them out quite nicely. Then Mikkel Tokvam takes what Ben Krellin's done. You can even see it says their benchmark to Ben Krellin's statements and presents it from a number from 0 to 2. 2 obviously being a confirmed double, 0 or dash a confirmed blank game week. Just a little bit easier to interpret when it is placed in numbers. For both these accounts, really useful, would recommend following them. Ben Crellin is almost essential. Now the fourth tip I'm going to give you is simply labeled statistics. You guys know I classify myself more as a stats-based manager, and there's a few reasons for that. The first reason is I simply can't watch every Premier League game when it happens, and therefore I rely on the stats to tell me or interpret what happened in the fixture, and that's why I'd recommend that you guys use them. Now if you guys watch every Premier League game, watch all the highlights, you're probably more of an eye test manager, and that's 100% fine. I just can't do that. Now in terms of stats, there's two kind of sections I want to cover. The first one is going to be the stats that you've come to expect, your XGs, your XAs. I like expected numbers, but there's some managers that don't. But shots on target, touches in the box, original stats like that, also super useful. So not only for teams, but also for players, I use stats for comparison's sake. It allows you to kind of compare players on a very like-for-like basis, and not just suck your thumb and pick a player. Then the next section is all about the odds. This is something that's come up quite recently. Every situation in sport usually has odds attached to it. So we can then use these to determine outcomes in the future. So both these two kind of sections of stats I love to use, and you would have seen that in the positional reviews we did a few days ago. So just an extract from our forward review video. Don't look at this graph now, rather watch the video. But you guys can see I'm comparing two stats here on screen. Then in terms of the odds, there's an account that you guys have to follow, probably one of my favorite accounts over the past few seasons, and that's Rob TFPL. So on Twitter, he uses the spread X data to give us the clean sheet potential as well as the goal potential for a respective game week. So very nice graphics over on Twitter. This is one from game week 35 last season. The two things that you guys can use this for is the clean sheets as mentioned and then the goal threat. And this can help your captaincy decision as well as your bench order. For example, if you guys are looking to decide which 3 defenders out of your 5 to start, you can go over to the clean sheet potential and select the players with the highest clean sheet chance, and that gives you a very easy solution. Then in terms of captaincy, or even just for what attackers to play, you'll select the team with the highest goal potential, Newcastle against Sheffield United in game week 35. Just very useful for these kind of debates about who to start, who to captain, who to bench, as makes the comparison very easy. Now obviously the odds aren't very kind of set in stone, they can change throughout the weeks. Sometimes I also believe they aren't the best kind of representation of what actually happens, but I like to use this when it's a very kind of 50-50 decision. Now the last tip I'm going to give you is all about the predictions or kind of projection models. Over the last couple seasons, the prevalence of these models has become a lot more, and there's actually some managers out there that only play through a model. So you guys can decide if that's right or not, that's an entirely different debate, but projection models have made things quite easy in terms of FPL. So the two factors is transfers and captaincy that I want to talk about, as I've used projection models quite a lot through the past few seasons. So what a projection model is basically predicting how many points a player scores in the future game weeks, and this is based on the stats. So the inputs for a model can be XG, XA, upcoming opponents kind of XG conceded. That's all plugged into an algorithm, and then the output is going to be the amount of points projected for that player in a specific game week. And this can be one game week or it can be kind of the upcoming 6. And then from that, you guys can optimize like we did in the best draft video. That can give you the best possible selection for a 5.5 midfielder or defender. And there's your decision made for you. But the way I use projection models is usually to sense check what I'm doing or open my eyes to alternative situations. So what I usually do is I plan out my kind of week, my transfers, my captain. I then see what the projection model's telling me to do, and it usually says exactly what I was planning to do anyways, but there might be a second or third optimal situation that I haven't even thought about. So I'd probably recommend not being 100% reliant on a model, but I can understand if you guys want to get there as it is a little bit easier. You guys don't need an algorithm though. What you can just do is a pen and paper. You can predict how many points a respective player scores in the future game weeks, and then compare two like-for-like players. I think a lot of people naturally have been doing this even from when FPL first started. Models have just risen in popularity recently though. Now if you guys want to get access to a model, you guys can use kind of a free one. I know FPL Reviews a very popular model. They have a free version. Fix also has projected points, and basically every FPL website does it. But I do believe when used well, projection models and even just predicted points in general can help you improve as an FPL manager and hopefully make better FPL decisions. Now the graphic I'm going to show on screen is going to be from Rob TFPL yet again. Here he's used the spread market to predict goals scored, and you guys can use this for your captaincy debate especially. So you guys can just see there for game week 37, Erling Haaland projected to score the most amount of goals, so you can use this for your captaincy decision. Now the last extra kind of bonus tip is just kind of more general talking points. The two I want to cover are more team structure and preseason tips, and these might be more beginner. The first one, team structure, it might be things like not choosing 2 starting goalkeepers that are expensive. Even though they rotate quite well, you probably just want to stick with the 1 starting goalkeeper and save the cash on your bench. It could also be just have some good bench coverage, at least 1 or 2 options that can come off if one of your starting 11 does get injured. And I've always favored more kind of attackers than defenders in my formation. Then in terms of preseason, don't look into preseason too much. This happens every kind of year. There's a player that scores a huge amount of goals in preseason, maybe a youngster, but then when game week 1 comes around, they bench for the opening 20 game weeks, especially this season with all the late arrivals. But today and tomorrow are super integral as they are the last preseason games, so place more emphasis on these ones than the before ones. But as mentioned, these are my kind of top 5 tips. You guys might have different ones. Comment them down below to help the community out, and let me know if you agree or disagree with any of mine. But massive week coming up next week. As mentioned, the Friday night deadline is going to be insane, so make sure that you guys are in the deadline stream for that one. This is basically a wrap for the video, guys. Hope you guys did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like if you didn't subscribe if you have subscribed yet. Bell notifications are turned on for the future uploads. But for the time being, I'm going to sign off. It's been Dayvy FPL and I'm out. Cheers, bye.